Hey all, welcome to Parker's Reef. On today's episode I want to show you what I've chosen for my Dream Reef Tank lighting. Philips Corolla Gen 2 and Orphek OR3. Alright, welcome to Parker's Reef and thank you for joining me on another episode which has become the journey of my Dream Reef Tank build. Now this is a big episode because we're talking lighting, and anyone that's followed any of my previous reef tanks would know that I like to put a lot of light into reef tanks, and I've done that usually through metal halides over time, and I've had great result with metal halides, and I kind of internally told myself I'd never move away from them, and yet here we are today with these Philips Corolla Gen 2 lights above this tank. Now I have to admit that the Philips Corolla is something that has intrigued me from the moment I saw the first generation of the LED unit released. A reef light made by a massive global sized lighting manufacturer was something that always really intrigued me, and they never really made their way to the Australian market, and I guess things kind of petered off from there. They'd never really made a hit in the American market either, and in this hobby, if it doesn't do big in America, it seems to, particularly in Australia, it doesn't seem to flow on down through us, even if it's been a huge success in Europe. So when the Gen 2 light came out, and there's a bit of talk going around about that, I got super excited. This was going to be the light for me. And then when the first reviews started to come out, I must admit I was a little disappointed. It looked like it had missed the mark a little bit underpowered, not enough blue. That was kind of my thoughts on the unit until I got my hands on a prototype a few months ago now, and you may have seen the in-depth review I did on the light then. Well, I am pleased to say now that I've saved up my pocket money, and I've managed to buy 3 of the Gen 2 Philips Corolla lights to put over this tank, and I could not be any happier. And I'm going to tell you why I chose them, what supplements I'm running with them, why I'm running those supplements, and how I plan to get the most out of these lights for this tank. So let's jump on into it. All right, the first thing I'll do is I'll raise these lights up so you can get a little bit better of a look at them. Now, as you can see, I've got 3 of the Philips Corolla on there at the moment. These lights are currently set to a measly 30% power, which you can see even when they're raised up to be 2 foot above the tank, still absolutely blast it with light. Now, obviously we've got no Corolla in there at the moment, and I've actually turned the lights up for the video. At the moment I have them running at 5% for 8 hours a day, just so I can basically see in the tank while it's doing its cycling. There's no need to pump any extra light in there at all. In fact, many people suggest that you don't have the lights on throughout the cycle, but man, you got brand new reef lights, you want to turn them on. So I have the lights on. Now, the spread from the Philips Corolla is just like nothing else out there. I mean, I say nothing else, like no other LED. The only way you can get spread from reef lights like this is by going T5 or metal halide. I'll get you some close-ups so you can have a look at the diffuser arrangement on the Philips Corolla. There's some sort of black magic going on there, the way they have these overlapped diffusers with different optics which just blend the light in all direction. Obviously, I've got the lights quite high above the tank here now, but the optimal running depth for the Philips Corolla is actually around 6 inches above the water, which is really, really close, and that's because it gets this huge spread. Now, I'll get the par meter out in a little bit, we'll turn these lights up, and I'll do some par tests around the tank. Little spoiler alert, I've already done that with some quick rudimentary tests before and was blown away by the par from what is effectively only 170 watts per unit at full strength. And bearing in mind that we don't actually usually run them at full whites and full blues, so they're going to be less than 170 watts, which is just crazy. Considering that if I were to go metal halides on this tank, I would have ran 3, maybe 4 400 watt metal halides on magnetic ballast, which is about 440 watts each. So we're talking 2 kilowatts of lighting above the tank. Plus I probably would have had some LED supplements as well, so I didn't have to run the halides for the full 10 hours a day. Swapping that out for 370 watt units is it's just cost saving. Now, I say cost saving, and it does come at a cost in the fact that these units are $1,800 each Australian, plus you need a controller to go with that, which adds an extra couple $100. Now, it's obviously not a cheap exercise, but lighting on reef tanks rarely ever is. Now, you may notice there are some other extra lights in between the Philips Corolla cares. I've got the brand new Orphek OR3. These are the 60 centimeter models, the Orphek, where does it say it? OR3 60. I've got the blue supplements, and the main reason why I picked these lights up was because I was under the impression that the Philips did not go blue enough for my likings. And I must admit, I'm quite surprised now that I've actually got them above a tank, not just in a test bed out in my patio out there, that these lights can actually put off quite a large blue spectrum. So if you're one of those people that really want to get the blue popping in your tank, so you get those extreme hyper saturated colors from your corals, the coral cares are actually going to do a lot better job of that than I originally thought they would. That being said, there's no harm at all adding some extra blue spectrum, and I've been super impressed by the rich, vibrant color from the Orphek OR3s. The one thing that has had me a little, I wouldn't say disappointed, but just made me scratch my head around how I'm going to configure them for my need, is the optics on them are very, very narrow. They seem to have a very sharp lens on each of the LEDs, which gives you a pretty narrow band, even at that far above the tank, for where the light hits. Now, one of my, which is totally fine, probably ideal if you're running them lengthways with the tank, but as I've got them going front to back like this, it will give me some color bands where the Orpheks land. Now, a friend of mine and a channel viewer in Chris Melb has actually successfully removed the optics from his Orphek OR3s, and he said that the spread is huge. Obviously, if you remove the, there's two screws on, or there's one screw on each end of the acrylic plate that goes over the lenses. You can take that off, you can actually pull the lenses off. That obviously results in a huge spread. In fact, the light's almost going to go out horizontally rather than straight down. That does come at a cost of par. Thankfully for me, I'm not actually trying to get any par into the tank with these Orphek lights. I'm just trying to get a good color spread. So I think I'll probably give that a try, and I might even cover that in another video, my attempts at removing the factory optics, and we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, I'm happy with the way it is. There's a little bit of banding from the Orpheks, which I could probably dial in by, I've got these on their brackets, which allow you to angle them and mount them. So I could probably get them to blend a little bit better that way, or I could run more of them. They seem to, at about 6 to 7 inches above the tank, on a tank this tall, they seem to equate to around about 12 to 14 inches of spread at the base. When you look at the color from the on the sand bed, and if you like, I can turn the coral cares off, which I'll do right now, so you can have a look, and then I'll lower the Orpheks down to where they would be, so you can see what the spread's like with the factory optics. Let's do that now. All right, so we've got the coral care switched off now, and we're just lighting this 210 centimeter tank with 4 of the Orfek light bars. And you can see with the Orpheks, what do we got? Approximately, yeah, we're about 19 inches above the water's surface there. The blending is actually pretty good. You don't get too many light and dark spots, but not many people are going to run these lights 19 inches above the tank. So I'll bring them back down to our usual sort of spot. Now, I must admit, I don't know the recommended installation height for them, but I'd imagine we're probably going to aim for around about 6 to 7 inches above the tank's water, which we're probably about 8 inches there. Now, I'm not sure how well it's turning up on camera, but you can pretty well see a nice bright band there. These two are kind of almost angled into each other, so you kind of have a band there and a band there. This one over here gives us a nice band about there, and then the one on the end gives us a band there. Now, those bands at that height are probably, yeah, they're about a foot wide, which obviously, if you were to only run these lights on this tank, you wouldn't have them that far separated. You'd probably mount them the other way and you wouldn't notice the banding so much. But I'm trying to go for a really wide spread on this tank, so I will pull the optics off these and see how they go. And like I said, I will make sure I do a video on that to take you guys along for the journey. Now, conversely, let me switch the Orpheks off and put the Philips Coral Cares on, just so you can see how they go without them. All right, so now we have the Orphek switched off, and I have the Philips Coral Care switched on. I have them at 100% white there and 40% blue, just because as soon as I turn the blues up, it looks a little bit funny on camera. And I have to say that I know a lot of people, particularly in the States, were saying that you have to run 100% blue and only about 60% white to get the color that you liked. And I must admit, I felt fairly similar when I had one test unit. Getting these over the tank, I'm not so sure. Like I said, this is 100% white, 60% blue at the moment, and it's not actually that bad for a mid of the day color spectrum. Probably I would lean a little bit more to 100, or if anything, a drop of the whites, maybe back to 90 or 80 at tops to give you that slightly more blue, 20,000 Kelvin sort of color. But there's a lot of power there, a lot of light and a lot of spread, and you can see with just 3 lights operational that we get light spreading across the entire tank. I will get the par meter out and we'll do some tests so you can see the values there, but they're working really well. Now, I'll also get the camera up above the tank and I'll give you a bit of a look at how we've gone about mounting these lights, because I'm sure you've seen the video I did on my DIY motorized light frame, which is what allows me to do the pretty cool things like this of lifting the lights up out of the way so I can work on the tank and stuff like that. But I used a little bit of 80-20 and then some basic stainless steel oil threads, some zip ties, some T-nuts and bolts and things there. Basically to get these all up there. I made a little acrylic rack at the back to mount some of the power packs and things too, just so they moved up and down with the lights rather than hanging off the back so that they put weight on it all the time. All right, let's get these lights down and I'll show you how they're mounted. You can see this sit-stand desk is doing its job very well, and then to that I've just mounted over in the back here some 80-20, I think this is 30mm profile, just a couple of arms coming out, to which then I've then added a couple of 80-20 30mm profile beams going across. Now the Orfeks come with these very nifty little stainless steel mounting brackets, which are super handy. I've been able to mount them in a couple of different ways depending on where they are on the light frame. For instance, this one here, I've just put a T-nut into the side of this part of the channel here, and I've just then bolted that on. So these ones can actually, they're quite tight at the moment because I've tightened them up, but you can actually adjust the angle of them with those brackets, because you can loosen these bolts and adjust them there. For the ones on the end, I literally fitted the bracket over the end of the 80-20 profile, and what I'll eventually do is I'll put a T-nut down in there just to make sure they can't come off at all, but they're not going anywhere. Now, for the Philips Coral Care, these ones are a little bit more tricky to mount. I should actually, before I get to that, I should actually mention the Orfeks actually do come with these stainless steel brackets and also a wire hanging kit from the factory, which is super handy, gives you 2 high quality options of mounting them. The Philips, on the other hand, comes with just the wire mounting kit, but obviously I didn't want to hang any lights from this because of the way my light frame moves. To zoom out a little bit more, because of the way my light frame moves up and down, I don't want lights swinging when they're on cables, so I wanted to basically hard mount. Now, I am having a look around to see what I can do to make up some little brackets to bolt these solidly onto the 80-20 profile, but in the meantime, I literally just got some stainless steel oil thread, put that between, added a couple of nuts so that it can't move side to side, and then just put some big zip ties around there, which I know it's pretty crude and it's a temporary solution, but you never know, sometimes temporary solutions last. Now, the controller itself, I've got up above the central light there, along with the power board to all of the Philips lights there. Over on the back, there's the power drivers for each of the Orfek lights and the power board that turns them all on. That's how I've gone about mounting these lights. It's sort of professional, sort of not. I'll keep working on it. I'll tidy these wires up a little bit more. I may even make a little cover, little acrylic cover to go over the power board to the back there, just to make sure that we don't get a fish splashing them or anything like that. But in the meantime, let's move these lights back up. While I'm cycling, I like to have them nice and high above the tank, just so I've got clean and easy access to it. And that lets me get into the tank without having to worry about lights being in the way. You can see the diffusers on the Philips are incredible at diffusing the light. All sorts of different shapes and angles and things that all blend them together very, very nice. I love the way the camera goes from getting the light on the full angle to then separating the that cutover point there. It just goes into a solid beam of light. You can see the Orfeks. We've got these range of different colors and chips in here. I'll tell you a little bit more about the details of those. All right, and as promised, here is a little bit more of a close-up and a little bit more information on these Orphek OR3 light bars. Now, as pointed out, I did just get the blue model because obviously I've got other LEDs doing the full color spectrum. These were just there to give a little bit more pop in the blue. Now, Orfek do these in a daylight spectrum, this blue spectrum, and I did just see announced on their Facebook page that they're doing a UV spectrum to get even more pop. So I'd be tempted to maybe pop a couple of the UV ones in down the track just to see what they do. Now, I'm not sure if I zoom right in here, if you can see there that these are actually their brand new dual chip LEDs. So there's actually 2 LED chips in each one of these little clusters here. And what they do, these are the exact same LEDs they're running in the brand new V4 Atlantics. Now, to make these work, they're actually 5-watt chips, but they run them at 50% power, which is meant to help with the heat and the longevity of them. So Orfek have done their homework. They want to make these light bars last as long as possible, and I must admit the fixture itself feels really nice. It's nice extruded aluminium. The included stainless brackets, they're a little bit thin, but I mean, they're not exactly heavy lights. They're going to hold enough weight. They just slot into this channel here. You tighten down on there. You get these sort of adjustable brackets as well as a wire hanging kit with each unit. As mentioned, you can undo them. They've got these caps on each end you can undo, and well, you don't want to break it. The acrylic itself is held down by a couple of screws here, so you can undo those bolts and pry that up if you wish to. One thing I should point out is there is silicon on there, so it takes a little bit of prying, and if you really wanted to be precise, you'd probably need to re-silicon that when you put it back down. What else can I tell you about these lights? Let's have a look. I'll give you an idea of the chips in there. I should point out, they come in a 60 centimeter, a 90 centimeter, 120 centimeter, and 150 centimeter length. I've got the 60 centimeter length because I wanted to run them front to back on my tank. They unfortunately don't do a 7-foot unit, so I would have had to have gone a 5-foot and a 2-foot to go lengthwise, and it just wasn't going to work with my mounting arrangement. So I've gone front to back, and I've gone 4 of the 60 centimeter units. The 60 centimeter units have 2 410 Newton meter LEDs, 2 420s, 4 430s, 5 460s, 3 470s, and 2 480s. And you can check out the rest of the LED configurations on the Orfek site, which I'll put a link to in the description. But I guess the only other thing I should point out is they run a little external power supply. They are not dimmable from the factory. It is a simple on-off operation, and it is important to get this plug around the right way. I thought I'd broken a couple of them because I wired them all up, only to find that I had that plug 180 degrees around the wrong way and the light wouldn't turn on. Unplug it, turn it around, hey, happy days, it works again. So bear that in mind when you are installing your Orfeks. But all in all, a very good value, very high power, simple to add, nice, neat little LED bar. All right, for the PAR tests, I'm going to be using this Apogee quantum meter loaned to me from a friend. Now, quick point of interest, this is the QMS-WSS model. I have been told that under full spectrum LED, you need to add about 10 to 12%. I'm going to mount it up here, and hopefully you'll be able to see the figures as I take the sensor around so you can see it live as I'm recording them. Just bear in mind you need to add 10 to 12%, potentially more for the blue only colors from the Orfeks, but I'll let you guys make your own correctional values. I'm just going to put the values on screen and let you have at it. So I'm going to fire this up. I'll mount it up here on the tank or somewhere where the camera's going to pick up the value, and I'll start pointing this thing around the tank and see what we get. All right, hopefully you can see the value on screen there now. I've tried my best to light it so that you get a good idea. You can see just under the, if I go back up, I can't quite get directly under the Phillips, but we're talking, I don't know, around 650, 660 plus correctional value. So I mean, up into the 700s. If I come about 8 inches below the surface, we've got about 500 par plus correctional value. If I come down to the top of my rock work, which is about halfway down the tank, we are talking a par of around 300 plus correctional value. And if I take it right down to the sand, we got around 210 there plus correctional value. And if I bring that over right into the corner over here, we got around about 140, 150 plus correctional value. If I come right to the front in the middle of one of my LEDs, oh, that's 175, 180 plus correctional value. My apologies, I thought that was 110. If I come down pretty well in the middle of the central one there, yeah, we're talking around 215 plus correctional value. Again, this is with the Philips Coral Care on 100% both channels, mounted 7 inches above the water surface. If I have a look at some of the rock points there, and I've got to try and keep the sensor square, up into the 260s. Just trying to keep that meter somewhere you can see it. All right, so you can see we've got values from on top of my rock work there. In fact, if I try and get that between there, which I can, happy days. On the top of my rock work, we're around the 330, 340 mark plus correctional, so just below 400 par on the, about midway in my tank with the Philips alone. So what I'll do now is we'll test the Orfeks on their own, then we'll try them both. All right, Philips Coral Care switched off. Nothing but the 4 Orphek OR3 60 centimeter units. Now, I'll just get this unit out here. If I come directly under, get the cable out of the way, directly under one of the units at the just below the water surface, somewhere between 250, probably around, yeah, 250 par plus correctional, so maybe 275 par directly underneath one of the Orfeks at the surface. If I come halfway down the tank, we're getting around about 100 plus correctional value. And if I take it right down to the sand, we're at about 80. So it actually holds fairly well there, that bottom 6 inches, which is probably a testament of the lenses on the Orfek, which are very, very narrow. So it's holding its value in that track down down the tank quite well. But you can see if we come over into the void where there are no Orfeks in there, our par drops down to about 14. So the gap between these two is about 50 centimeters, which is the widest gap, and you can see there's not a lot of light getting between them, which is totally fine. They're, like I said, they're not there to fill the tank with light. That's the Philips job, but I am curious to see how we go when we take these lenses off. Now, the big question is, what do we get when we put them both on? So bear with me, I'll turn the Philips Coral Cares back on. We'll see the values then. All right, we've got all the lights on now. We'll see where we're at. I'll try to get somewhere in between a Philips and an Orfek there. It's kind of in between the two, so you get values in between the two. Around 450 plus correctional. We actually get more par if we go directly under the Philips, which is understandable. But I guess we probably want to see where things are at on the rock and on the sand. So on the highest point of my rock, my hand kind of gets in the way of the light there. I'll move that. So in between the Philips lights there, we're still getting around 320 plus the correctional. If If I come a little bit further over, it's that 3, about the same. And if we come all the way down to the sand, oh, I've got to try and get my hand out of the way. Come all the way down to the sand next to our meter here. We've got about 290 par plus correctional value on the sand, so probably around about 325. Sorry, about 320, 315, 320 on the sand. If I bring it over into the corner where I am over here, we've got about 190 par there, although I'm not able to hold it exactly square. About 190 plus correctional. If I go right over into the middle of the tank on the sand bed, you get about 220 there plus correctional, so about 240 par at the sand. So a pretty nice even spread really, when you think that up here on our rock we're at about 330 and down here we're about 240. A nice sort of sweet spot for SPS and LPS, which is exactly what I'm going for in this tank, which is the mixed reef. I will need to be mindful when I add the Kessel A360X that I don't create any hot spots. I know a lot of people talk crazy high par values, but par isn't everything, spectrum is. This is more than enough par to grow the corals I'm wanting to grow. I just want to add the Kessels for a little bit of shimmer, so I need to be careful how I go about that. But all in all, I hope that gives you a good idea on the par values of these lights here. I know there's a lot of talk, particularly from the guys on BRS TV that mentioned that the Philips Coral Care are probably not strong enough to grow SPS. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm going to humbly disagree, and I'm sure that all of those running these lights in Europe on some SPS dominant displays are going to disagree as well, but I'll let you guys make up your own opinion on that. I'm super happy with how it's turned out. Now, there is one more lighting technology that I want to add to this tank, and that is Kessel A360X. The shortcomings, if I can find any, for the Philips Coral Care were that they are not as royal blue as some of the other super modern reef LED fixtures out there, and I feel like I've addressed that with the Orfek supplementation lighting. And the other thing that I don't feel they do quite as well as some of the others is the shimmer. Now, we're not actually getting bad shimmer there. I'm not sure how well that comes up on camera, but you kind of can't have super widespread and shimmer in the one package. I know Kessel do a pretty good job of it without the narrow lens. You get incredible shimmer without too much narrow beam effect there, but I'm a long-term Kessel fan, and I definitely need to get some Kessel A360X above this tank. So I do actually have some lock line mounts coming, which I'm going to do some pretty cool things with. So the lock line will be able to mount to my 80/20 frame, and it's going to allow me to adjust the Kessels anywhere I want them. Any sort of, you can imagine it like a Joby Gorilla Pod, or the lock line on the return lines there. I'm going to be able to point those A360Xs in any direction at all. And I'm going to run 6 of them above this tank as well. Realistically, just for shimmer. That's all I want to add to this tank, is maybe when the Philips start to ramp down, I'll have the Kessels come in and add a little bit of shimmer for that night. Cool effect, but it's going to help fill any voids if there were any at all. So I feel like where the Philips give you great spread, maybe not the world's greatest shimmer, the Kessel's going to come in and replace that. And if you love absolute crazy level blues to really make those disco colors pop, the Philips probably isn't going to get you there, but supplementing with the Orfeks will. So in my opinion, this has covered all of the bases of my lighting requirement. It's given me excessive par, it's given me crazy spread, it's given me the shimmer, it's given me the royal blue, it's given me everything, and best of all, it's minimal power usage despite the amount of light up there. In fact, the 3 main workhorses on this lighting rig are 170 watts each. The amount of power I'm saving each and every day by having these units running instead of metal halides is astronomical. Plus, they do put off a lot less heat, which is going to help in chilling and cooling this tank. So all in all, I think it's a really good solution. As always, I'm keen to hear what you guys think about it. If you have any questions at all regarding the Philips Coral Care Gen 2s, they are now just available in Australia. The distributor did air freight some in. I know my local fish shop had a pre-order of 6 units. 3 were for me, 3 were for another tank. All 6 went on the day they came in. They were pre-orders though, but the distributor does have a larger freight order of those arriving very soon. They're just not going to be air freighted because of the extra cost. But I was pretty keen to get these above my tank, and thankfully for me, they were pretty keen to accommodate that. So here's the lights. Let me know what you think. Pop any questions, comment, feedback in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, please consider doing so. It costs you no money at all. Take 2 seconds of your time. I'd personally appreciate it very much. Just click that button down in the corner. Thanks guys, till next time, keep reefing, stay safe.